Let's hope this Sand Devil content doesn't put you to sleep. Hello, everyone. Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and we are here on the Free to Pause account, and I do want to thank Polarium for sponsoring this video. We are going to be talking about Sand Devil. Now, there is another wonderful content creator named Bronco who does some amazing work building teams, and I certainly have to credit him for this idea, so I will leave a link down below to his channel and his particular video on this subject. And honestly, he built the team better than I did, but he's got an ultra endgame account, plenty of great gear, and I am a free-to-play player on this account, 280-ish days in, and I'm struggling with an awful lot of things, and one of the things I've been struggling with is Sand Devil. Now, I have not pulled a Godseeker, and that's fine. Godseeker solves that fairly easily with reasonable stats now. You do need a blessing or two on her, but for the most part, you need reasonable stats, you need the right speed, and then you can farm with food with a Godseeker level 25, and it's very, very easy. But until you get that Godseeker, it is much more difficult. So I found a team, thanks to Bronco, that I said, I wonder if this would work. And I actually managed to push it up fairly high. So how high did I manage to push it? Did I get to 25? Why don't we talk about that a little bit and talk about where I still need to go with this team and where I am succeeding with this team. So first of all, for reference, on this account, I hadn't gotten past stage 15 before today. As of filming this video, technically it's Sunday, so you guys should see this video on Monday, but as of Sunday, I had not gotten past stage 15. 15 was a hard stop for me, and with this team that Bronco had, without actually doing a lot of work, I was able to get all the way to stage 24. Now, my stage 24 theme is not consistent. I think the stage 23 team was okay, but it's not quite as good. It's not perfect. Stage 22 was fine. I think stage 21 is where I was finally ended my run of doing really, really well, and I had to do a little bit of building for 22 or 23. And we'll talk about that, because honestly, some of that building is honestly still not done. And I've gotten 24 to work better, but it's not perfect, and I know why. So we're going to talk about it a little bit. I think I have a team for 25. I'm just not going to have it built for another week or two, and I was really excited to do this video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about what you need to build this team, what you're going to want to build this team on stage 25, which unfortunately, you can look here, I have not beat yet, but we'll talk about what you're going to need for it. We'll talk about ideal champions and less than ideal champions as well for it. And we will go and take a look at what I did and what you can do to build yourself a fairly accessible stage 20 to 25 Sand Devil team. Before we do talk about that, however, I do want to mention that stage 25 is really where you want to end up farming. And if you're not farming stage 25, well, that's fine. It's certainly better than to not farm anything at all, because you need some of this stuff to grow your account. And it's one of the places that my free-to-play is starting to lag behind because I've not been able to farm higher than 15. But if you can get at least to like 19 or 20, you can at least get some of the top level oil occasionally, which means you'll have a chance for some of this, and you can get a good amount of the lower level oil. That means that you can actually, you know, farm a reasonable amount of this stuff and start growing your account and growing where you are going to be, you know, enhancing your gear. So the reason 25 more important though is 25 is the only place to get the dust, and the dust means that you can start re-rolling the stats on your ascended gear, which is going to ultimately mean you can take your best pieces and guarantee that they are going to have the best ascension stats for your champions. So here is the team. Not particularly exciting, honestly. You've got Tholen, who is a fusion, and Tholen is here because, well, it's either Tholen or Alice made the most sense of the three Euchres I would probably use on this. I guess, to be fair, I could use Quintus instead. Quintus does actually a good amount of damage against bosses, so he would be another option as well. Michelangelo certainly works very well for those of you who just joined for the Turtle event as well, along with getting Donatello. Hopefully, if you have Donatello and Leonardo, they are a great pairing, and they were the ones that got me to stage 24 and almost got me through stage 25, but it didn't quite work. And we'll talk a little bit about why it didn't work as we talk about the champions in this video. You'll also see here that Dur the Hungerer is 6 stars, Level 31. This is because until I got past stage 22, and I think 22 or 23 was where the breaking point was, I didn't actually have to 6-star him. I had him at 5 stars, built fairly well. All the stuff was rolled up and in regeneration and stuff, and I'll show you the build. But 22, 23-ish was right around where he ceased being tanky enough to live through everything else. And again, this is not a great matchup for him, but because of how tanky he is in general, and the fact that you've got some healing with Donatello and he brings some extra healing as well, you generally can keep him alive, especially if you have regeneration and immortal gear, and get him fast enough. And fast enough is going to be a little bit different depending on your account. The good news is he doesn't have to be extremely fast, because one of the advantages of using this Donatello team is Donatello will reset his regeneration, or his revival, I should say, and that revival is going to, be up a little more often. So it technically doesn't have to be booked. It's nice if it is, particularly because you want the rest of his kit, which involves additional healing, to also be booked, so that's going to be helpful. He also doesn't need masteries. They help. They will speed it up, both if you get War Master on him to do additional damage occasionally when he does attack, or just getting more healing and more other things out of his kit. But he doesn't need masteries. I'll show you, I don't have full masteries on mine. Donatello, again, doesn't necessarily need masteries, but he does need to be booked, including his passive. His passive being booked is actually important for the way this team works. And then Tholen, any damage dealer should work. The thing about it is, the higher up you go, the tankier you are going to want your damage dealer to be. So we'll talk about that a little bit when I show you the builds. All right, so this is my Tholen build. He's got a good amount of attack. He's got some good defense and some good HP for, a nuker. Part of that is the blessing. That's an extra 600 defense and an 850 HP. That is pretty huge. The relic certainly doesn't hurt as well. That's giving him a ton of extra crit damage as well. Good speed. The faster he is, the more times he is going to attack. So that speed is somewhat important, but it's not necessarily a deal breaker if he's 15, 20 speed slower or 15, 20 per speed faster. It's really going to depend on your team and what kind of gear you can get on there. Building him for a ton of damage is going to be helpful. The accuracy is nice, even though he is very unlikely to land anything on the boss in this particular build, because he only lands debuffs on that A1, and if he's not A1ing when the boss is asleep, he's not going to get that weaken, and that weaken is not going to be useful against this boss anyway, because you're going to cleanse it oftentimes, and it's irresistible because he happens to be a boss. So Tholen can be built without accuracy. For other areas of the game, however, it might be nice to actually have all that accuracy. So I've got it. Part of that's all the blessing, and you got the affinity bonuses as well. You get a bunch of passive accuracy. Why not make sure he has enough to land a debuff whenever you need him to, and you're not going to complain too much. He is also in savage and crit damage as well. I've got a little bit of pinpoint on here as well for some extra speed and accuracy. In fact, I've got some feral here as well. I'm actually rocking 4 different sets on this bad boy, a bunch of bonus stats from the relics as well. That is very helpful. And again, I've got the Malefic Talon on here, so he's got a bunch of extra crit damage and HP, but any damage dealing relic will work fine. A Cat's Gaze would be wonderful for him as well. That'll increase his damage significantly here. The Malefic Talon is probably the next best raw damage for this particular boss. Here's my Dur the Hungerer build, and you'll notice again, he is not fully level 60 because I was able to rock him at 5 stars for a long time, but he needed the extra HP because his 5-star max HP capped out at like 11k or 10k. So at level 30 as a 6-star, he's already got more HP and more defense than he did beforehand, and that's going to be very helpful. And if once I get him to level 60, he'll get another 3000 base HP and probably another 200 to 300 more defense. That is going to make him significantly tankier and probably make the runs just a little bit safer and help me get in to level 25. But that's going to be over time. The good news is if I can farm stage 20 consistently with him, he'll earn some XP and eventually level himself up. And at some point in time, he'll be good for that. So I've got him in regeneration gear, which you really do want for him because that's going to make sure his max HP is kept fairly high. You're also going to want to make sure that you got some healing on him as well. Golden Elixir is a great relic for him as well. You could certainly go with the Book of Journal of Rected Rhodos as well to give him additional healing as well. He does have this healing. This technically counts as healing. So there are some uses of these things as well. Dur, however, is perfect for this particular build for one big reason. What we want is we want Donatello to keep the Reviver alive. So the Reviver has to be in the lead slot for whatever build you end up using for this. And you want a Reviver who has a revive that does not work if the champions are already up. Why? Because what you don't want to have them do is you don't want to have them use that revive and then not have it available when you need it. That, however, is also part of the problem, in that if these champions are dying at the wrong time, then he might use his revive too early, and if he's not back to it, that can be a problem. But again, I like Dur for this because he's also got the heal here, in addition to the continuous heals as well. As far as blessings are concerned, well, I said I've got the golden elixir because that will help keep him alive. If it drops below 50%, he gets a bunch of extra HP. In this case, it's going to be an extra 14%. That can be very, very huge. And then as far as blessings are concerned, I've got miracle heal, 50% chance of restoring some max HP, and it restores 10% of the heal. It's fine. If you're really worried about this sort of thing, you could maybe argue that Nourish might be a little better because you'll get more HP out of the continuous heals. But since they are one turn continuous heals, they're not as good. And while you're guaranteed to get a 5% heal from that, it's not perfect. It's not great. So I like the miracle heal just a little bit better. And on him, that's going to help keep him up to max HP, which is probably just a little more important as well. And again, we talk about overall stats, can show you those here. I've got him at 224 speed, but honestly, he was working as low as 180 speed. And part of that, again, was Donatello doing Donatello things. But the higher level you go, you're going to want him to be somewhat faster. And honestly, I think 221 is probably the minimum speed you're going to want. That means that Dur is going to take one turn every time the boss takes a turn, which basically means that he's never going to be hit by the boss twice in a row without taking at least one turn. And that is going to help keep him alive with that extra regeneration and other stuff as well. So eventually his max stats should be closer to 60 to 65k HP once we get everything rolled up a bit further. And once we get him up to level 60, he's going to end up probably around 3k defense as well. And everything else should be fairly similar. I'm not really worried about his attack because we're not dealing with damage. Accuracy is not bad under the Hunger because he does have an A1 freeze, but it's an A1 freeze with a low chance to land on a champion that you're looking to revive and heal your team. So accuracy is never a high priority on a Dur the Hungerer. And Donatello, I've got a couple of different builds that I was fooling around with. This was the one that I like the most, and this is probably the one I'm going to keep on him for most content. But this is 4-piece regeneration, or 4-piece. This is 4-piece relentless, so he's going to get extra turns occasionally. That helps him reset his reset a little more often because he can't reset that with anything else, but he can reset it by getting an extra turn. Plus, since he's doing a ton of healing and a ton of turn meter boost, he is going to push the turn meters further and further, push the healing further and further as well, keeping everyone alive. I really, really like this build. Now, the other builds I do have for him as well, so we're going to go to the filter here and fitting room, and then as you can see here, he has the 92k HP, you've got the 2.6k defense, 283 speed, 265 resistance, which is really not enough to do much of anything. Now, the other builds I've had for him is, this was my initial build for him, and as you can see here, almost identical speed, about the same stats, a little less HP, probably because I have some immortal gear on him and I'm taking that off, but we have an extra almost 100 resistance, and that is a big deal. So 344 resistance becomes something interesting versus 265, which might as well not have any resistance for the most part. He does have a resistance banner, but that's because I don't have any good defense or HP banners in the Lizardmen, and this banner has a double hit in speed as well, giving me almost 18 speed, in addition to giving me a bunch of extra HP percentage for the substats. So putting a bad HP banner on him makes him slower with less HP and less resistance at the same time, which is not a good plan. Now, the other one I was using for the higher up levels, and I think this is probably where I would have to go, is the regeneration and immortal. Now, again, I lose a bit of speed, although once I get these ascended for an extra 12 speed, that will be almost identical speed, so that's not a big deal. We gained a little bit of defense, lost a little bit of HP. These numbers are pretty solid still. The resistance, again, doesn't really matter at this stage of the game because he's not resisting anything against this boss anyway. But what this will do is this will make sure that Donatello keeps himself alive, which will make him very, very valuable, because that's one of the problems you can have with this team, and one of the points of failure is if Donatello dies too early, it can be a problem. So why is Donatello dying early a major problem on this team? Well, what we have is we have this passive here that whenever an ally is about to receive a fatal hit, this champion prevents that ally's death and keeps them alive at 1 HP, then equalizes that ally's HP, and the level of that HP of the ally will be brought up to the average HP of the team, and that's pretty solid. Now, with Sand Devil, this works kind of strangely, where oftentimes they end up at about 70% HP. I have no idea why when other people are killed, other than it is quite possible that what happens is the first person dies, but doesn't actually die, averages their HP with everyone else that is still alive, then everyone heals, and then the rest of the champions die around him. So it looks like it's a random, but it's actually, pretty much based off of what the other champions happen to have at that time. But that is a huge, huge thing for getting your reviver to stay alive. And then, of course, he brings the continuous heal, which is nice, and the turn meter control and the strengthen, which can help you stay alive. And it's a cleanse, which certainly doesn't hurt. And then he's got this skill here, which resets everybody's cooldowns. So while you won't need your revive booked for your reviver necessarily, you might want other stuff booked anyway. And if it happens to be booked, that means he might get back to it even sooner and fix this skill as well. So that is kind of the mechanics that we are trying to leverage for this. So what are the downfalls of this team, and why am I still struggling to get to 25 with a team that honestly should be pretty consistent? Well, first of all, I want to talk about the positioning for these champions. The good news is they don't actually need a preset, although I certainly could make one if I wanted to play a little bit fiddly with when things are used. Donatello is not the brightest guy. He will often do his reset as the first attack in the game. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's what he does. And Tholen does Tholen things, so that's fine. Dur will generally revive when revive is available, and he needs to revive people. He will heal otherwise, then he will do his A1. So these guys, perfectly fine, don't need to really do much of anything to get them working properly. But the dangers you have are Donatello needs to get the cooldown done off of his passive before the boss kills your entire team, and that means that he's going to block the death of the reviver right here. So assuming you can block this reviver here, these other two people die, and then this reviver needs to be able to pick up both of these champions. That is why it needs to be at least a 2-person revive. That is why you cannot run food on this as well, because you don't want this person wasting the revive on the food as well. Now, you certainly could use an AoE reviver. So if you have an AoE reviver, like a Pythion, for example, is really, really good in this, because Pythion gives you a bunch of extra stuff in the passive and provides some extra healing as well, both with that A2 and that A1. So Pythion, really good champion for this, but Dur the Hunger is a very accessible champion with all the skills you need to get this particular build done. So I thought he was going to be a great champion for this, and I mostly had him built. I had him built up to 5 stars, and I decided to make him 6 stars for both this video and to try to solve the Sand Devil. The other danger you are going to have, if Donatello dies too early, he won't prevent the death of the reviver, and if the attacker dies too early, well, your reviver could revive him, not have his revive ready when the big wipe happens, and suddenly Donatello doesn't have his passive back up by the time that we get around to needing it again. So that is kind of the danger for this team, and that is why this team works on stage 20, and I'm struggling with it on stage 25, because we're just not surviving the boss too much. So what kind of damage dealers are you going to be looking for this particular team? Well, I thought Michelangelo would be great, and he is, because he is tanky. Amazingly tanky for an attack-based damage dealer, but he's not tanky enough because his evades are only partially effective, and he still is a squishy attack-based champion, and that shield that he gets up that is fairly powerful only comes up when he is hit and lasts for 1 turn, so he generally burns through his shield by the time he gets a turn. So it doesn't quite work 100% of the time unless you make him super tanky. Tholen is kind of tanky, but not tanky enough. Now, champions that might work would be champions like a Newt, for example. I don't have a Newt on this account, but Newt being a defense-based damage dealer means he is tanky enough that he might be okay against the boss. Plus, he's also a good affinity as well. So between having a generally good HP and a high defense and being the bad affinity, the chances of him staying alive are going to be more helpful as well. The other problem you have is keeping Donatello alive. Donatello is bad affinity for the boss on level 25. So if you can build him with enough HP, and you're probably going to want about 4k defense and at least 85 to 90k HP to really make sure that he can survive the boss. But even then, it might help to have a good aura that's going to give you additional HP or defense as well. Unfortunately, I don't have the right aura because you are very, very much stuck at getting the reviver in that first slot. Or you just need to build better champions or get your, maybe I need to actually invest in Sand Devil Live Arena bonuses, or maybe even just my regular arena bonuses eventually will make Donatello that much tankier. And finally, of course, your reviver does need to be tanky enough to survive the rest of the wave. This means that in particular against stage 25, you are probably looking for somebody that's going to be strong against force. So that is where you're looking for a Pythion is good because he is a force-based reviver. A Duchess would be a good option for you because she is going to be a spirit-based reviver. Those type of options versus somebody that is a magic reviver may not get the job done quite as well as you might hope them to. And again, if it's not an AoE revive, you are going to struggle overall making this work perfectly. And the healing for Dur the Hungerer or a Pythion is going to be challenging as well. Now, there's one other interesting option that I think might be okay for this as well, and that's going to depend on whether or not you have a particular legendary relic. So Aspect of Siroth prevents fatal damage, reduces the turn meter with 50% of the turn meter, and can basically drop the turn meter down. But the enemy ends up going to sleep afterwards as well. So if your reviver is tanky enough to be able to put Aspect of Siroth on, and your other damage dealers, or maybe you only have one damage dealer, if he's the right speed, so he's going to get that revive off every 4 turns, then you can make him around that 220ish speed. Then he can revive your champion. The Aspect of Siroth is off of cooldown, and you should be in good shape to run a 2-person team with Aspect of Siroth, assuming your champion can survive both that first Aspect of Siroth hit and then the next hit that's going to happen as well. And that's where regeneration certainly could help as well. So you might be able to get away with Dur the Hungerer and Aspect of Siroth. That is not something I have tried, and honestly, maybe I will try that at the end of this video to see if I can get that one to work with this particular team or not. The good news about that one is because we have, I believe that is a 4-turn cooldown. Yes, that is a 4-turn cooldown. This will work. This should work without really speed tuning much else with him using Aspect of Siroth. But if you have Donatello, you won't need the Aspect of Siroth, which you might want to put on somebody else instead. Donatello can do the job as well, but that is going to still complicate things because that's another champion you need to make sure they remain alive. And that's where, for example, a Granite Doorkeep comes in. Granite Doorkeep as an HP-based champion with decent amount of defense because he's a dwarf. Well, once I actually get him to 6 stars, he should have like around 70k HP and 2k to 2.4k defense, decent speed. He lands debuffs. He has other things that help him do additional damage. He even has a triple hit A1 that can do a ton of damage as well and ignore some defense. He's certainly not the best damage dealer in the game, but as a damage dealer, he could be a very viable option for me on 25 because he is the right affinity and he is naturally very tanky just because he is an HP-based champion. As I mentioned before, Newt would be another option as well. And honestly, you can probably use plenty of epics that would fit the bill as well, as long as they are somewhat tanky or have some other way to make sure that they stay alive enough to be able to eventually be killed by the boss at the same time as your reviver is, so you can keep that turn loop going. So with the builds we have here, I'm going to run this one quickly, and I say quickly, it's probably going to run about 4 to 5 minutes. It's not a very, very fast one, but I want to kind of show you how the team works. So I'll move myself right here. And so there we go. We just got the revive, and Dur was kept alive by Donatello. Hopefully you got a chance to see that. If not, we'll have it come back again when he gets around to his next turn. This is where Leonardo, or not another turtle, but well, actually any turtle. So you could say Leonardo might be a fun person to put in here if you ever get your Leonardo. Michelangelo works fairly well for this as well. In fact, Leonardo would be a very good champion for this as a defense-based nuker that has some additional tankiness involved on his kit as well. So he might be a good option for you to run here as a damage dealer, and he won't have any affinity issues. But, you know, Tholen doing some decent amount of damage, you know, and boom. So Donatello didn't actually die with that hit. Not really a big deal, but, you know, nice that he didn't actually die. But as you can see, he kept Dur the Hungerer alive, and as a result, Dur was able to revive. Well, he could have revived everybody, but he didn't need to revive Donatello, but he still revived Tholen. And eventually we should get a place where he kills absolutely everybody. Just need to wait for a couple more turns. And then, yeah, I mean, we're already under 75% HP as well, about a minute into this run. So yeah, 3.5, 4 minutes on level 20 with this particular team. Tholen just doing a lot of work, which is great. And next hit should be the one that kills absolutely everybody. We'll certainly see if this is going to kill my turtle as well. And it may not, because we actually have that strengthen up as well. So there's a good chance that maybe it won't actually kill him. But, you know, he burned through the strengthen, and there we go. See, he died, everyone gets revived, and we're good to go. Hopefully, though, you can also see why having people die out of turn can be a problem with this team. Now, one of the ways you might make that a little more consistent is maybe if you got rid of the Relentless on Donatello and slowed him down a little bit so his reset was not happening at the same time, so that maybe his reset wasn't happening super, super early, and as a result, Dur may not actually, you know, need to do all of his weird reset abilities as well. I don't know. We'll see. I think that the reset ability is just kind of nice. It makes sure that this is all up. And as long as you can build the champions tanky enough to survive most of the rest of these hits and only die when he does his little sleep attack, you've got a solid, easy, auto farmable team. So let's skip to the end of this battle and we'll show you how long it took. I'll show you the damage stats for this as well. And then, you know what? I'm going to try 25 with Dur with the aspect of Serathon, just to see if I can get him to work with that aspect of Serath. There we go. 3 minutes and 30 seconds, 116 turns. That was actually a record for that particular team. That's awesome. And yeah, Tholen doing a ton of damage, and, you know, stage 20 solved. That team was never in danger and worked exactly as I expected it to, and I can run that team for quite a while and level up my Dur until he's going to be fully ready, possibly to take stage 25. So let's hop over to stage 25. We'll talk the speeds that you're going to need, and we'll give it a try with just Dur and Tholen probably, and see how that works with aspect of Serath. All right, as far as the speeds are concerned for stage 25, which means the speeds don't have to be quite this high below it, but this is a good guide. You want to have anybody with a 4-turn cooldown on a skill you need to have off of cooldown at certain times when he does his big hit. You're going to want a 221 speed minimum. So Dur is 223, I believe, so he is just fine here. Donatello was 280 something or 270 something, and it's important for him because his cooldown for the ability to prevent the death, I believe, is a 4-turn cooldown. We'll double check on here and make sure. It is a 4-turn cooldown. So you're going to need to make sure that Donatello is at least that 221 speed for this stage if you're going to be using him instead. And, you know, we're going to give this a try. The good news is if this works, then it wouldn't necessarily need to be a dual reviver. A single target reviver would work just fine in this slot, but you're going to need to make sure they are speed tuned specifically for this boss to be around that 221 speed, maybe just a little bit faster, to make sure that they go at almost exactly the right time. So for me, Dur is a perfect choice because I don't mind him being that 220th speed, because other than using him in Faction Wars and occasionally in Centranos, I'm not using him in a high-end content, so I don't need him to be much faster. And honestly, as an epic, he's very expendable to be permanently locked at that speed in this dungeon, even if I end up having to build another one for other content because I need one faster, or constantly swap his gear, which to be fair is free now. So swapping gear, much easier than it used to be, which has actually made building this particular team much easier than I expected, because I have been swapping gear constantly and I've been able to do it for free. So let's have this run. Let's see how this goes. Again, we've got, they should just die right here, and okay. So Dur is not tanky enough to take that with the Aspect of Siroth, unfortunately. So Aspect of Siroth, probably not going to be a good option for this. It was worth a try, and I figured I'd run it for anyone that wanted to see what kind of substitutions you could make. Now, maybe with Dur being tankier, so maybe if he was level 60 instead of level 32, maybe that might work, but I figured I'd at least run it and try to show you how that runs. So there you go. A very fun team that should work. It'll actually do very well, I think, with Leonardo or Michelangelo as well as Donatello, and that's going to give you some additional healing from Donatello as well, which I think is absolutely amazing. But you're going to need better stats than I can manage on this account. So if you want to see better stats for an endgame account that can actually do that, go check out the video for Bronco below where he did that. But you can use this team to progress, even if you're not going to be able to do the highest stage. And eventually, as your stats continue to improve, or maybe eventually you get that Godseeker team available, you should be able to eventually do 25 with a team very similar to this. So hopefully you found this very helpful. Let me know, what are you using in Sand Devil? Are you stuck at Sand Devil? Is this something you actually want to try on your account? You know, let me know what you think of these type of guides, especially if it's in situations where I'm not able to do the top floor. I hope this gives you at least a more realistic look from an account that might be similar to yours on the struggles that you might have on making this team work on it from an honestly awesome content creator who does a really good job of explaining it. Hopefully I have also done a good job of explaining the team. And again, check the video out down below if you guys want to go give Bronco some love. You guys have been absolutely amazing. Appreciate you guys hanging out. You guys are an amazing community. Much love. It has been a wonder to grow with you guys and, you know, to be a part of one of the best communities in gaming and in Raid Shadow Legends. So until the next video, I am Bront, CatHerder.